Joint forces deter Houthi attacks in Hodeidah, inflicting losses on the militia. Government forces and resistance clear strategic sites in Al Jawf. Human rights organizations document Houthi rebels' violations in Taiz. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shaza Abdelbey. Joint forces thwarted an infiltration attempt by the Houthi militia on 3 fronts in the western coast and inflicted losses on them. A military source said that the militia targeted Al-Saleh, the 16th kilo, and Hais fronts south of Hodeidah. Focus strikes were directed, achieving hits in the hideouts, barracks, and reinforcements of the militia. In addition, Houthi militia resumed their shellings against civilians targeting villages to the south of Hodeidah. Local sources reported that the militia targeted villages in Al-Jah with artillery shells and various types of machine guns. Houthi attack was indiscriminate, causing panic and terror of innocent citizens. Also in Al-Hodeidah, at least 18 people were killed and injured when a Houthi armed vehicle crashed into another engine carrying citizens. The accident took place near Al-Mantasha. Local sources pointed out that the militia armed vehicle was driving fast when crashed into another engine. This led to killing and injuring of passengers as well as the Houthis. Head of Hodeidah Police Najib Warq discussed with Mutahhar Al-Qadi, a member of the parliament, and the security issues in Hais. The meeting stressed the need to remove waste in front of schools and public streets, which blocked movement of citizens. Warq stressed the importance of preventing the act of shooting at weddings. He affirmed those who seek to destabilize the security in Hais to be confronted strictly. In Al Jawf, government forces backed by resistance cleared up new sites in Al Qaif front in Bart Al Anan after fierce battles that resulted in death and injuries among the militia.
The government forces and the popular resistance defeated the militia members in the northeast of Al Jawf after the operations to liberate sites near Al Khanjar. The northern Axis forces carried out today an attack on Al Qaif fronts of Bart Al Anan, through which they regained a series of new sites that have been under the control of the Houthi militia for years. The surveillance and reconnaissance unit had drawn a map for the course of the attack according to the militia's weak points. Fierce confrontations took place from the eastern and northern axis. The first penetration of units of the Axis forces was from the eastern side, after which the herds of the government forces penetrated towards the positions of the militia and took control of Kibian Mountains and Tibeb, which the Houthis were using as a fort. As for the northern side, battles continued as militia members were trying desperately to besiege government forces, but they ended between dead and injured, while the rest fled after fierce confrontations at the crossroads of the front positions. The ongoing directives ended with the killing of about 17 from the militia, the wounding of others, and the destruction of their truck and BMB vehicle. The heroes of the government forces and the resistance seized heavy and medium weapons left by the Houthi rebels before fleeing. The eruption of battles in Al Jawf raises several questions about the date of liberation, which the observers believe is already late. The question would be, are the recent attempts enough to restore the city and defeat the rebels?
Tribe leaders from Al-Juhayriyah visited Al-Harq family to show support and empathy with the family and stressed those criminals to be held accountable and should be brought to justice. Today, many tribe leaders visited the family of Muhammad Ali Al-Harq in Taiz, who were subject to physical assault and displacement by gunmen believed to be police officers. Human rights organizations relieved that 70 violations by Houthi rebels were documented in Taiz during one single month. These violations took place in security turbulences prevailing in the city. More on the story is within this report.
Despite the hard living conditions because of war and the siege on Taiz city, people's suffering is getting worse, with the city experiencing humanitarian violations. The Information and Rehabilitation Center for Human Rights reported 70 cases of violations that affected civilians in the city during July, let alone the ongoing security chaos and the deprivation from basic services. The center's monitoring team documented the death of 8 civilians, 4 of whom were killed by the Houthi militia. 3 civilians were killed by unidentified gunmen, and 41 civilians were wounded by mines explosions planted by the Houthi militia. Further to the killings launched by the militia on residential neighborhoods and citizens' farms in separate areas has added to the complexity of the scene. The mess does not end here, as the team recorded 16 cases of violation of private property, where 2 houses were completely damaged, 3 were partially damaged, and 5 vehicles were damaged as a result of the bombing by the Houthi militia. Another house and vehicle were partially damaged by the bullets of an unidentified gunman, and the pharmacy was detonated with a grenade by an armed man. Statistics reveal the state of chaos that prevailing in the city has grown dramatically, in conjunction with armed groups in liberated areas practicing fiddling, seizing public and private properties, imposing extortion from merchants and citizens, provoking riots and armed confrontations. The city of Taiz is still in a miserable humanitarian situation as a result of the siege imposed on it by the Houthi militia on one hand, and the bitter reality of living due to the unstable security state in the city and the increased crime rate on the other.
Coming next. New school year amid deplorable economic situation makes it hard for families to cope.
ثالث على منطقة الروضة، استهدف الأطفال الأبرياء اللي يلعبوا في الشارع. بيدعي للسلام، يقولوا للسلام يقتل أطفالنا، يقتل أطفالنا الأبرياء.
أنا قلت استجعت ولا أقول معي واحد صاروخ ثاني، طلعت البيت حقنا عشان ألعب أنا وأصحابي والصاروخ الطرح.
Welcome back. After the decision to start the new school calendar earlier, are families really prepared for such challenge, especially with the price of tuition fees going high and the limited seats available in government schools? Are families able to cope with this decision? This report surveys a number of parents and school leaders stand on that issue.
The school year starts in Marib, but the government is still suffering from the hard economic situation. Parents are confronted with many economic hurdles, first of which the lower value of the rial and the rise in prices. All this comes with a rise in the fees at private schools, yet they try to cope. The schools lack equipment such as adequate seats for the students, especially in the government-run schools that face the problem of large classes. Muhammad is one of those mothers who strives hard to secure a seat for her 3 sons in a governmental school, after she was enabled to join them into a private one.
أنا الآن ببحث عن مدرسة حكومية أسجل أطفالي.
I'm looking for a governmental school for my kids because the private schools' fees are expensive. When we look for a governmental school, they said that it's crowded and there is no opportunity to register. It is difficult for the parents to pay because there are no salaries.
The pressure on government-run schools is increasing after private schools raised their fees by nearly 35% compared to last year. The governmental schools lack classes, books, along with educational staff.
As to the numbers of students inside the class, they are crowded. There are 60 to 70 students in the single class. This year, the number is increasing because the students turn to the governmental schools after the private ones raised their fees.
نحن طالبات مدرسة شهيد محمد هايل الصف التاسع نوجد ازدحام كثير بسبب عدد الطالبات.
The class is crowded. There are no buildings. We want to have new schools.
Students in Marib find themselves confronted with the limited governmental schools that have no ability to absorb all these numbers of students. The officials even do not find a solution for the problem.
When the teacher goes into a crowded class, it is hard for the teacher to communicate the subject. It is difficult for the students too to receive information. We call upon all officials to solve the problems. They have to find solutions in order to raise the salaries for the teachers.
Those displaced because of war are facing a double trouble with their living condition, and by looking into the future of their children, the problems of the governmental schools could deprive many children from the right to education.
The local council in Al-Makhat held a meeting with partners to discuss the situation of displaced people in 4 coastal areas. The meeting focused on the needs of the displaced people and how to update their data. Worthwhile, Al-Makhat hosts hundreds of displaced people who have left their homes to seek shelter. In Aden, tens of vehicles lined up before petrol stations because of the severe fuel crisis. Truck drivers said that the petrol stations in different parts in Aden witnessed congestion due to lack of fuel, expecting the crisis will be hard in the coming days. The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced the registration of 25 new cases of the epidemic in 4 governorates. The committee said on Twitter that 11 cases were recorded in Hadramaut, 8 in Aden, 5 in Taz, and 1 in Shabwa. Also 4 deaths were documented, 3 in Hadramaut and 1 in Aden, plus 27 recovered cases, 22 in Aden, 3 in Lahj, and 2 in Hadramaut. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 7,372, including 1,411 deaths and 4,570 cases of recovery. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Joint forces deter Houthi attacks in Hodeidah, inflicting losses on the militia. Government forces and resistance clear strategic sites in El Jouf. Human rights organizations document Houthi rebels' violations in Taz. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.